Good afternoon. If this were any other Tuesday, you would be listening to another No Fair Remembering Stuff, the Tuesday edition of the Professional Left podcast, which, as you know, is available wherever you get your podcasts and at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. You also know already, I'm sure, that there's a Patreon button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at The Professional Left Podcast, P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
And if this were that, this podcast would not be safe for work. It's been quite a week.
And it's only Tuesday, yeah.
Yesterday, a little before midnight, I think Eastern time, Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis released an absolute Snyder cut of an indictment against Trump and 18 of his Confederates in a massive RICO roundup of many but not all of the bad actors who were in on the scheme to overthrow the results of the 2020 Georgia presidential election. And so, like you, we've been up to our ears in that since then.
Yeah. I have a whole spreadsheet, and I've been showing it to my wife, and it's been fun.
You think that's a joke? He has a whole spreadsheet.
Oh, I have a whole spreadsheet.
He has a whole spreadsheet.
I do. I have a grid of charges and people and check marks and counts and clusters, and I might start making charts. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm very good at collating data and making
data. Yeah.
And it's such a big indictment that I didn't know how I'd get my head or arms around it. And I thought, aha, put it in a goddamn spreadsheet and take a look what it looks like. So I did. But you don't need to fear, because on Thursday, that's 2 days from now, we will be dropping our regular Pro-Left podcast. And next Tuesday, we'll be back with another episode of No Fair Remembering Stuff. I'll let you know now, it involves people wearing Brooks Brothers outfits.
Oh, yes.
And then right after that, the first week of September is upon us, and it'll be time for another edition of Science Fiction University.
Right. On the 29th of August, I believe, is when we are going to do Science Fiction University.
Yes. Yeah. And tentatively entitled Mother Nature USMC. And you can just figure out for yourself what that means. And yes, I have heard your many cries in the wilderness. Oh, Driftglass, when will you give us a proper vivisection of these shitty columns that David Brooks has been pooping out back to back? Because now he has another job, not just bad columns for the New York Times, but he writes crap for the Atlantic too. What are you going to do? When's that going to come out? Well, so there will be some of that too. But if you really, really can't wait, let me remind you that the soft launch of this very podcast, No Fair Remembering Stuff, way back in October of last year, began with a 6-part series on the journalistic offenses of David Brooks. So you can just go back and listen to that.
We thought that we got David Brooks out of Driftglass's system, but it turns out David Brooks didn't get out of David Brooks's system.
No. And
so we're probably going to have to mention some of that on Thursday's show, I think.
It will be obligatory, especially because so many people are now writing about it. People at the Bulwark are now writing about it. And I'm like, guys. And I was a little pissed that a Bulwark writer who I'm sure he's a fine person, I've never mentioned on this podcast before, said many media commentators from Mehdi Hassan to David Frum to Jay Rosen, friend of the podcast, David Rosen, have pointed out the asymmetry in the fact that, so many people went out to the field to live at Ohio diners and report on Trump voters, and nobody was fucking interested in Obama voters, and nobody was interested in Biden voters, and how weird that was. And I got to admit, I was kind of pissed that I wasn't one of the many other commentators, but I think I'm on the shit list over at the Bulwark.
Oh, yeah. You can't mention Driftglass at the Bulwark.
No, because of the one or two things.
Because they're too busy listening to you.
Yeah. Well, and somebody into my path today, someone threw a Charlie Sykes being a clip of Charlie Sykes being promoted by Bloomberg News, and it was him in front of his mantelpiece. I assume he was on MSNBC, since he is always on MSNBC, talking about, first of all, Donald Trump isn't a conservative, okay? He isn't conservative. In fact, he could be considered a Republican in name only back in the days when that meant something. But Rush Limbaugh saw something in that young man and thought, fuck those people. And then he goes on a tearful journey, and all the things that we believed conservatism stood for turned out they didn't believe any of that. The base didn't believe any of that. Oh my God, it was such a shock to find out the Republican Party was full of Republicans.
Yeah.
And he just did a long weepy thing. And I just said, you know who did know? All those liberals that you spent 30 years shitting on the radio. And we all warned you this was going to happen. But Charlie Sykes has the microphone and we don't.
Yeah.
So that information.
But we do have a microphone to say that Charlie Sykes and Jeff Duncan of Georgia, who was star of the show this week in terms of reject Donald Trump, we need to pivot, did you see testified against Donald Trump. Okay, good for you.
Did you see the part? Did you see the part in that man's hair?
That hair has so much product in it. He is gorgeous, right? He's Ken doll, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I want to know from these Never Trumper folks. They're yearning to go back to a saner time for the Republican Party.
Right.
How do they feel about the grand bargain? How do they feel about Social Security spending? Are they okay with it?
Yep.
No, I think average Americans should have to retire at 74
or die.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, even before Donald Trump showed up, they were dead set on getting rid of Obamacare because Obamacare was a blight on humanity.
60 times. They voted to take away my health insurance 60 times. And then Trump was elected and they passed it.
Right. They did.
And had a party in the Rose Garden?
Rose Garden, a beer party in the Rose Garden to get rid of my wife and our kids' health care, to kill it. And they laughed and they celebrated. But for John McCain's thumb, that would have passed and it would have been over.
And Liz Cheney was at that party.
She was.
So, this is not some sort of grand divide within the Republican Party.
No, absolutely not.
Don't be looking for good Republicans.
No.
There's no need. I wish we could get back to sane Republicans. Why?
Show. When was that?
When was that?
Point on the timeline.
The doll, right?
You mean Lincoln? Wiping out the South? Okay, let's do that. Let's go back to love to see that. Let's do that again. But other than that, Eisenhower? Okay, I can settle for Eisenhower. Nixon? You want to go back to Nixon?
Nixon? Right.
Kick this whole thing off for the Southern strategy?
But Eisenhower, I don't know why Eisenhower ran as a Republican. I guess
he'd win. He won.
He'd win. I don't know. But everyone was going to vote for Ike no matter what. Yeah. So that was different. And I just don't think we need to be yearning for anything other than let's keep sane people in office. And that does not mean Republican.
No. And you know what? This could be a lively debate on cable news were it not for the fact that my allies on the left said, oh, go ahead, let the Never Trumpers in. Go ahead, let them have the microphones. Go ahead. They're our allies now. They're our friends. And they have completely taken over the microphone. Yeah. They now own the microphone. And they are setting the agenda. And they are deciding what the narrative is. And Trump is bad. And the 9 people around him are bad. But you know what? They're still looking at Chris Christie going, you know what? Looking mighty good.
He's got a point.
Looking mighty tough. Let's remember Liz Cheney is a fucking hero. There aren't enough statues of the Cheney family in America. And I was and am all for anyone joining the Democratic Party to be an ally of Democrats.
Right.
As long as we're clear how we got here.
Yep.
And we did not get here in 2016. And that was my only condition. My only condition was you can't fucking lie about how we got here. And you can't keep blaming liberals for half the shit that's gone wrong in your fucking party. You lost your party. I didn't. And
you stole Supreme Court seats.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Right. And now
congratulations.
And now the sun is blotted out by all the chickens that are coming home to roost. And and now guess who's in charge of the narrative?
Right.
Tim Miller and Tom Nichols and Charlie Sykes and Rick Wilson, and not a single fucking liberal voice, truly liberal voice in there with them going, wait a minute. The Republican Party did not go suddenly insane in 2015. The Republican Party's been going down this road for 50 years, and you were part of it, right? And that's the point where they cut your mic, except you'll never get a mic because nobody wants to hear that story.
Yeah.
And it's too late now. I know it's too late now, believe me. But it maddens me that we knew they were going to do this. We absolutely knew this was going to happen. If you give these people the microphone, they will take it and they will decide what the past was, and they'll make the real past go away, and we'll all be sitting here on our little blogs and podcasts, pounding our fist, just like after the Iraq War went tits up. And there was a moment when the left, oh, holy shit, the left was right. And then corporate media killed that. Absolutely killed it.
Well, talk about that. Talk about the Women's March.
Yeah.
The largest protest in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Oh, can't have that.
No.
David Brooks says, nope, sorry. That's a fluke and frivolous. And those ladies, calm down, ladies.
Yeah. So all of those moments.
No one's taking away your abortion rights, ladies. Just calm down.
To misquote Blade Runner, like tears in the rain. All of those moments are gone, like tears. Except here at the No Fair Remembering Stuff podcast, we have a little cup where we keep those memories
and those tears,
and we bring them back to you and remind you the next time they ask you, "Are you a god?" You say yes. You don't say, "You know what? I really feel like Charlie Sykes should be speaking for the left now. So let me step away from that and let me scold everyone who suggests otherwise." Because I don't know if you know this, Driftglass, it's a fight for democracy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Jeff Duncan is a good guy.
He's a good guy. I mean, really.
Yeah.
He's going
to take away your Social Security, you 30-somethings, let me tell you.
You can use that haircut as a setup block on your table saw. It's that accurate. But he's still a fucking Republican, and all Republicans are garbage. So on that note, don't forget, we really need more Patreons to make this podcast fly. So if you can afford to support us in that way, or if you have some of your ancestors' jewelry you can sell and give us the money, that'd be fine too. Visit our Patreon at patreon.com/ProLeftPod. And thank you so much for doing that. We love you.
See you next time. The Professional Left podcast, No Fair Remembering Stuff Tuesday edition, is produced under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2022-23, DGBG Productions.